On my 18th birthday, my aunt told me, "Nobody wanted you. That's why you grew up in foster care." I said nothing. 20 years later, when she was evicted, she came begging for help. I handed her a check for 1 month's rent and said, "Nobody wanted you either. Now you know how it feels." So yeah, that's the title. Sounds dramatic as hell when you read it fast, but I swear it's one of those memories that's branded into your head forever, like a scar you don't always see but know is there. I, 38 am now, grew up in foster care in the Midwest after my mom disappeared when I was 6, and my dad, well, he wasn't really in the picture even before that. A lot of my childhood was bouncing around different houses, getting the temporary kid treatment, sometimes kind, sometimes straight up awful. The thing is, I did have family, aunts, uncles, cousins, but for whatever reason, no one stepped up. Not one. I remember being old enough to know their names, to know they existed, to overhear adults whispering about them. And yet birthdays, school plays, even when I broke my arm at 12, they were just these ghosts who never showed. You kind of learn not to expect anything when you grow up like that. You tell yourself it's better than sitting by the window waiting for someone who'll never come. But still, there's this gnawing thing inside you that wonders, why? Why didn't they want me? Was I that unlovable? Was there some family secret about me no one wanted to deal with? That question hung over me through most of my teenage years like a shadow. By the time I turned 18, I was basically counting down the days to age out of the system. I wasn't expecting balloons or cake, or even a card. Just freedom. Illegal, you're on your own now. That morning, though, one of my caseworkers gave me an envelope and said, "Your Aunt Linda dropped this off for you." Linda, my mom's sister, the one I vaguely remembered from a couple hazy childhood memories. She'd been around when I was little, braided my hair once, bought me a cheap toy car, but vanished after my mom left. That name hit me like an old bruise. So I opened it, expecting maybe some half-hearted happy birthday, congrats on becoming a man kind of card. Inside was a $20 bill and this little note, "Happy 18th. Thought I'd stop by to say hello." And here's where it gets burned into my brain. Because she didn't just leave the note and money. She actually showed up later that day. I was outside the group home, smoking a cigarette like I was way cooler than I actually was, when this woman in her 40s, short haircut, tired eyes, walks up and says, "Do you know who I am?" And I said, "Yeah, you're Linda." She smiled, like it meant something, like I should be happy to see her. And we talked for maybe 5 minutes, awkward small talk, her asking me about school, if I had plans now that I was free. Then she tilted her head, kind of studying me, and out of nowhere, she goes, "You know why you grew up in foster care, right?" I didn't even know how to answer. So I just looked at her. And then she says it, word for word, like she'd been waiting years to get it out. Because nobody wanted you. Not me, not your uncles, not your grandparents. Nobody wanted to deal with the baggage your mom left behind. I remember standing there, cigarette burning down to the filter, hands shaking so bad I had to shove them in my pockets. 18 years old, finally legal, finally free, and the first thing my blood relative says to me is that I was unwanted. I didn't say anything back, not a single word. I just nodded once, turned around, and went back inside. She called after me, maybe trying to backpedal, maybe not. I couldn't hear. My ears were buzzing like I'd been punched in the head. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling like I'd been shoved into the ground. It wasn't like I didn't know deep down that no one wanted me, but hearing it out loud, from someone who actually could have taken me in, who just admitted she chose not to, that's a whole different kind of pain. And here's the thing, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't even smash something like I wanted to. I just shut down, locked it away. Because if I let myself feel it all in that moment, I don't think I'd be sitting here typing this now. That was the last time I saw Linda for 2 decades. The years after that, I built myself from scratch. Worked crappy jobs, saved every penny, got my GED, then college by sheer stubbornness. I went from a kid who couldn't even picture a future to a man carving one out brick by brick. And every time I thought about quitting, every time I felt like I didn't belong in lecture halls or boardrooms, I heard Linda's voice. "Nobody wanted you." She meant it as a condemnation. I turned it into fuel. And it worked. I made a career. I bought a home. I built a life no one thought I could. But life's funny. Because 20 years later, guess who showed up on my doorstep? 20 years. That's how long it had been since I saw Linda. I honestly thought she'd faded out of existence somewhere. My life had moved forward. Career in tech consulting, steady job, bought a house in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. I wasn't rich, but I was comfortable. Comfortable in a way that felt almost foreign to me after growing up with nothing but plastic trash bags to move my stuff from one house to another. Then, one Friday evening, my doorbell rang. I'd just gotten home from work, kicked off my shoes, cracked open a beer, ready to unwind. When I opened the door, I swear my stomach flipped. There she was, older now, her hair grayer, her face more lined, but those same tired eyes gave her away. "Danny?" she asked, like she couldn't believe I was the one standing in front of her. I froze. Part of me wanted to slam the door. Another part wanted to scream at her, let 20 years of bitterness spill out. Instead, I just leaned on the doorframe and said, "Linda." She gave this awkward little smile, the same one from when I was 18, like she thought we were about to catch up on lost time. But her body language told a different story. Her shoulders hunched, her hands clutched around a cheap purse. She wasn't here for nostalgia. I asked, "What do you want?" She hesitated, then let out this long sigh. I, I need help. I wouldn't be here if I had anywhere else to go." And there it was. Not a reunion, not an apology, a plea. I invited her inside because I'm not completely heartless. We sat at my kitchen table, me nursing my beer, her clutching a glass of water like it was an anchor. And slowly, the story came out. She'd lost her job 6 months ago, some warehouse position that barely paid enough anyway. Her landlord raised the rent, she fell behind, and last week, she got the eviction notice. She was staying with a friend temporarily, but that friend was about to kick her out too. Then came the kicker. "I remembered you lived nearby. I thought maybe you could help me get back on my feet." My brain went blank for a second. I was looking at this woman, my aunt, my blood, and all I could hear in my head was 18-year-old me, cigarette shaking between my fingers, hearing her say, "Nobody wanted you." Now she was sitting here in my kitchen, begging not to be unwanted herself. I took a slow sip of my beer, trying to calm the storm inside me. 20 years of silence, of pretending I didn't care, were crashing back all at once. And yet, there was another part of me, the foster kid who knew what it was like to have nowhere to go, that couldn't just spit in her face and slam the door. So I asked the question, why me? Why now? You haven't spoken to me in 20 years. Her eyes filled up, but not the way you'd expect. It wasn't guilt. It was desperation. I know. I know I wasn't there for you. I should have been. I was scared. I didn't think I could handle raising a kid. I told myself you'd be better off in the system. But you turned out okay, didn't you? You're successful now. You have a house. I was right in a way. I swear, my chest burned hearing that. Better off in the system. Like the years of being tossed around, the trauma, the nights of wondering if I mattered. That was some calculated plan of hers, not just neglect. She was twisting my survival into her excuse. I didn't yell. I didn't even argue. I just sat there staring at her, trying to figure out if she even believed what she was saying. Did she actually think her absence was some kind of gift? I said, finally, you were right about one thing. I turned out okay. But don't mistake that for thanks. I didn't become who I am because of you. I became who I am in spite of you. Her face crumpled then, like she'd been slapped. She whispered, "Please, Danny, just 1 month's rent. Enough so I can catch up. I don't have anyone else to ask." The irony of those words hit me so hard I almost laughed. I don't have anyone else. I told her I needed time to think. She nodded, gathered her purse, and shuffled out the door. And the second she left, I felt like my house was vibrating with the weight of it all. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying it, over and over. The 18-year-old me hearing her say, "Nobody wanted you." And the 38-year-old me hearing her say, "I don't have anyone else." The symmetry of it, the bitterness of it, the way life had twisted around so perfectly cruel. And that's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. Not to destroy her, not to save her either, but to make her feel. For once in her life, she was going to sit with the truth she threw at me all those years ago. So the next morning, I sat down at my desk, opened my checkbook, and started writing. I sat at my desk that morning staring at the blank check for way too long. It wasn't the money. I could cover 1 month's rent for her and not even notice it missing. It was the weight of what it meant. To her, it'd be a lifeline. To me, it was a reminder that no matter how far I'd come, I was still tethered to the wound she gave me. I wrote the amount carefully. 1 month's rent. Not 2, not 3. Just 30 days of breathing room. And in the memo line, without even realizing it, I scribbled, for perspective. I laughed at how petty that looked, scratched it out, and left it blank. But in my head, that's what it was for. Not charity, not forgiveness. Perspective. Later that afternoon, I called her. She picked up so fast it was like she'd been sitting there staring at her phone. "Danny," she said, her voice thin, hopeful. "I'll meet you at a diner," I told her. 2 o'clock. Don't be late. The whole drive there, my chest was tight. I was rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd say it, whether I'd cave at the last second. I pulled into the lot of this old greasy spoon I'd gone to 1,000 times, sat in the car for a full minute gripping the steering wheel. Finally, I walked in. She was already there, sitting at a booth with a coffee she probably couldn't afford. When she saw me, her whole face softened, like I was her savior. "Thank you for meeting me," she said. I slid into the booth across from her, put the envelope on the table, and pushed it toward her without a word. Her hands shook as she opened it. When she saw the check, her eyes filled up with tears. "Danny, this will save me. Thank you." And here's where it all came out. I leaned forward, locked eyes with her, and said quietly, "That's 1 month. That's it. After that, you're on your own. Because I want you to understand something, Linda. 20 years ago, on my 18th birthday, you looked me in the face and told me, nobody wanted you. You said that like it was some casual fact. Like I was supposed to just accept that my whole existence was an inconvenience to everyone around me." Her mouth opened, but I cut her off. My voice got sharper. "You have no idea how many nights I lay awake in strange beds, staring at the ceiling, replaying those words. You don't know how many times I almost gave up on myself because I believed you. Because if your own family doesn't want you, who the hell will?" People at the diner were starting to glance over, but I didn't care. My throat was burning, and for the first time in my life, I didn't choke it down. "You told me nobody wanted me. And now here you are, sitting in front of me, telling me you don't have anyone else. Do you hear the irony, Linda? Do you feel it? Because I do. Every goddamn inch of it." Her face was pale, and she stammered, "Danny, I didn't mean it like that. I was angry, I shook my head. Don't rewrite history. You meant it. And maybe you thought I'd forget, or I'd grow up and laugh about it. But I didn't. I carried it like a scar for 20 years. And I swore if I ever saw you again, I'd make sure you knew how it felt." I pointed at the check. "That's 1 month of rent. 1 month where you won't be unwanted. After that, you'll know what it feels like to scramble, to beg, to wonder why no one gives a damn whether you survive or not. Because that's what you left me with." Her tears spilled over then. She whispered, "I'm sorry." And maybe she was. Maybe she wasn't. But it didn't matter. The damage was done decades ago. I sat back, took a deep breath, and said the words I'd been holding on to since I was a teenager. "Nobody wanted you either, Linda. Now you know how it feels." Silence hung between us, so heavy it almost drowned out the clinking dishes and low chatter around the diner. She stared at me, stunned, like she hadn't expected me to actually throw her words back. Like maybe she thought time had softened me into someone who'd forget. I stood up, tossed a few bills on the table for her coffee, and said, "Take care of yourself. Or don't. Either way, this is the last time we'll talk." Then I walked out. When I got back into my car, my hands were shaking again, just like they had 20 years ago when she first said it. But this time, it wasn't from shame. It wasn't from that gnawing question of why nobody wanted me. It was from release. I didn't feel proud. I didn't feel vindicated. Honestly, I just felt empty, like I'd finally let the poison out, but it left a hollow space behind. Driving home, I kept wondering if I'd been too cruel or not cruel enough. If that check would actually help her or just delay the inevitable. If she'd remember my words for the next 20 years the way I remembered hers. But I knew one thing for sure. For the first time since I was a kid, the scales felt balanced. Driving home from that diner, I kept my eyes locked on the road, but my head was somewhere else entirely. The scene replayed on a loop. Her face when I said it back to her. The tears, the way her hands trembled around that check. I had imagined that moment for years, some cinematic mic drop where I'd finally get my closure. Instead, all I felt was this weird, heavy silence inside me, like the kind that fills a house after everyone leaves. When I pulled into my driveway, I just sat there in the car for a while, staring at the garage door. The house was dark, still, quiet. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt like I'd just walked out of a funeral. That night, I poured myself a whiskey and sat on the couch in the dark. No TV, no music, just me and my thoughts. Every now and then, I'd catch myself whispering, "Nobody wanted you either," like I was testing the words out on my tongue. They didn't taste sweet. They didn't taste like revenge. They tasted like ash. I went to bed late and woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. Work was a blur. My coworkers noticed I was quieter than usual, but I brushed it off. On my lunch break, I sat in my car scrolling through my phone, half expecting a text or voicemail from her. Nothing. 2 days later, though, she called. I saw her name flash across my phone screen and just stared at it. My thumb hovered over the decline button. Then, without even realizing why, I answered. "Danny," she said, her voice cracking like she'd been crying. "I just wanted to say thank you for the check. And I'm sorry for everything. I don't expect you to forgive me. I cut her off. "Linda, don't." My voice came out sharper than I meant. "Don't try to clean it up now. We're not doing this." Silence. Then she whispered, "I know. I just wanted you to know that I heard you. At the diner. I heard you." I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time not from anger. From something else. Maybe grief. Maybe the realization that even when you throw someone's cruelty back at them, it doesn't erase what they did to you. It just exposes it to the light. The following week, I found myself thinking about her more than I wanted to, wondering where she was staying, wondering if she'd cash that check or if she'd tear it up out of pride, wondering if she even had pride left. It pissed me off that I still cared. After everything, I still had that foster kid inside me, the one who wanted to be wanted, even by the person who'd said he wasn't. One night, I called an old friend from my foster care days, Marcus. We'd been in a group home together at 15, bonded over sneaking Pop-Tarts and bad rap CDs. He's one of the few people who actually gets it without me having to explain. We met for coffee, and I told him the whole story. The birthday, the diner, the check, the phone call. He listened without interrupting, then leaned back and said, "Man, you think that's closure. It's not. It's just a chapter ending." I frowned. "So what? I'm supposed to feel better now?" He shook his head. "Closure isn't about making them feel what you felt. It's about you not needing them to feel it anymore." That hit me harder than I expected. I went home that night and sat in my office staring at the framed photos on my desk, my college graduation, my first apartment, the rescue dog I adopted last year. All the milestones I built without anyone's help. They were proof I wasn't unwanted. Proof I'd wanted myself enough to survive. And yet, Linda's voice was still echoing in my head. The next day she texted. Just a single line. I cashed the check. "Thank you." No emojis. No follow-up. Just that. I stared at it for a long time before replying. "You're welcome. Take care." I didn't block her. I didn't delete the text. But I didn't save her number either. For the first time, I realized I wasn't angry anymore. Not in the same way. The anger had burned itself out, leaving something quieter behind. Not forgiveness, just distance. But distance isn't the same as peace. I started thinking about what Marcus said, about not needing her to feel it anymore. Was that even possible? Or was the damage she did just something I'd always carry, like a scar that fades but never disappears? Some nights I'd lie in bed and imagine her sitting alone somewhere, holding that check. Did she tell anyone how she got it? Did she repeat my words to someone else? Did it change anything for her? Or was she just moving on to the next person she could ask for help? And in the middle of those thoughts, this ugly little truth crept in. Maybe I wasn't as different from her as I wanted to believe. Because I still wanted something from her too. Not money, not help, just a genuine apology. One that came without excuses, without rewriting history. But I knew better. People like Linda don't hand out clean apologies. They hand out survival tactics. By the end of that month, she hadn't called again. No texts, no updates, just silence. And I found myself both relieved and disappointed. Relieved because I didn't have to keep feeling the push and pull of her presence. Disappointed because the foster kid in me still wanted a family, even if it was broken. One night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, looking at my own face. Older now, but still carrying that 18-year-old's eyes. I said out loud, "You were wanted. You're wanted." I said it twice, 3 times, until my voice didn't shake anymore. Because maybe Marcus was right. Closure isn't her feeling what I felt. Closure is me not needing her to anymore. And I wasn't there yet. But for the first time, I could see the road. A few months went by without a word from Linda. I half expected her to pop back up when the rent came due again, but she didn't. Maybe she found another couch to crash on. Maybe she picked up another dead-end job. Maybe she finally learned how to tread water on her own. I didn't ask. I didn't want to know. Life went back to its normal rhythm. Work, gym, walking my dog, the occasional beer with Marcus. But something in me had shifted after that diner moment. I was lighter, somehow. Not free of it completely, but like I'd finally set down a backpack I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. Then, about 8 months later, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text, an actual handwritten letter. I knew it was from her before I even opened it. The shaky handwriting, the way my name looked almost careful, like she didn't want to mess it up. Inside was a short note. Danny, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't even know if it matters. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. Not the kind of sorry that expects anything back. Just sorry. You deserve better. I hope life keeps being good to you. Linda. That was it. No excuses. No explanations. Just an apology. I sat there at my kitchen table, letter in one hand, coffee in the other, staring at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to rip it up, call it too little too late. Another part of me wanted to frame it, because it was the first time in 38 years anyone in my family had ever admitted I deserved better. I didn't write her back. I didn't call. I just tucked the letter in a drawer with a bunch of old keepsakes, my GED certificate, some photos from foster homes where people had actually been kind, the collar from my first dog. Stuff that mattered. Stuff that reminded me where I came from and how far I'd gone. Years went by. I turned 40, then 45. Built my career higher, bought a bigger house, watched Marcus get married and have kids. My life wasn't perfect, nobody's is, but it was mine. And that mattered more than anything. Every once in a while, Linda would pop into my head. I didn't hate her anymore. I didn't even feel angry. She was just part of my story. A painful part, sure, but also one that had shaped me. Without her words, maybe I wouldn't have fought so hard to prove them wrong. Without her absence, maybe I wouldn't have learned how to stand on my own 2 feet. The real turning point came one evening when I was volunteering at this community center for foster kids. I'd started doing it quietly, just a few hours a month, tutoring, helping with job applications, being a reliable face. Nothing heroic, just showing up. There was this one kid, 16, lanky, attitude for days. He reminded me so much of myself at that age it hurt. One night after we finished working on his resume, he blurted out, "Nobody wants me, man. Not my parents, not my foster families. Nobody. I'm just trash they pass around." The words hit me like a gut punch. For a second, I was 18 again, cigarette shaking in my hand, Linda's voice in my ears. But instead of going silent like I did back then, I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "That's not true. I wanted you here tonight. I wanted to help you. And someday, you're going to want yourself enough to see that everyone else's rejection doesn't define you." He blinked at me, like he didn't know what to do with that. And in that moment, I realized something. I'd become the voice I needed back then. The voice that told me I was wanted, even if just by myself. Walking home that night, I finally felt it. Not revenge, not even closure, just peace. The kind that comes from knowing the cycle stopped with me. Linda had once told me nobody wanted me. She'd been wrong. I wanted me. I wanted my life, my future, my survival. And now, I wanted to pass that truth to kids who needed it even more than I did. I don't know what happened to her after that letter. Maybe she's alive, maybe she's not. Maybe she found her own peace, maybe she didn't. But that's not my burden anymore. Because at the end of the day, she was right about one thing. Nobody wanted me. But she left out the part one had to learn on my own. I wanted me. And that was enough. And maybe, just maybe, 20 years from now, some kid I told that to will sit at their own kitchen table and realize the same thing.